Good afternoon and welcome to this side event. This is a side event that is being organized by different faith-based organizations, ACT Alliance, Brahma Kumaris in Kuno. And our intention is to show that action, climate action, really requires courage and ethics, and that this is really needed. So the three of us on this table, Arnold, Lindsay, and myself, will position this need from different perspectives. And I'm happy to give the word to my friend Lindsay to start with.
Thank you and welcome all. I'm with the Quaker United Nations office, and I would like to start by looking at each word: encourage, ethics, and climate action. We are here today as a presence for faith voices at the climate change negotiations in Bonn. And we speak, I hope, with the spirit and strength of our brothers and sisters worldwide, from all religious faiths, who face with courage and ethics the reasons for and consequences of climate change caused by our human activities. Increasingly, faith voices worldwide are offering a positive and empowering voice of hope over fear, of compassion over indifference, and urgent and fair action as a moral obligation. Let us begin with courage in ourselves and in our decision makers, to look in the mirror, to transform those parts of our lives, our economic, social, and political systems which are driving the environmental destruction, be it species extinction, ocean acidification, rising global temperatures, chemical pollution, etc., etc. Let us connect courage with ethics, the moral call to conscience, the caring of creation, the why of our inspiration to act urgently to protect the most vulnerable now and all our future generations. To blend personal witness with political action. To always ask ourselves, what did we do when we knew? To live so that others might also live. To act urgently and sufficiently now that we do not, to act urgently and sufficiently now so that we do not cause profound suffering and loss of life due to our greed, our denial, our ignorance, or our just plain apathy. We ask if our governments are explaining to our fellow citizens just how profound and serious this window of time is to help stabilize temperatures at a healthy and sustainable way. Or do you experience a strange silence in your governments, since low consumption may clash with our current economic frameworks, or a desire to again be voted into power? From courage and ethics to climate action, what do we mean by climate action? And I speak as an observer of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, and an expert reviewer of the global warming, the special report on global warming of 1.5. So let us focus on the first, the P1 pathway of the special report for global warming of 1.5. There were 4 pathways. On the first, if we act to limit temperatures to a 1.5 global temperature limit rise, rather than a 2 Celsius or a +4 temperature rise on which we are currently on track, what can we save? Let me name a few. We can save millions of people's lives and livelihoods. We can save hundreds of thousands of plant and animal species from extinction. We can save genuine chances to eradicate poverty and reduce inequalities that even with a 0.5 rise beyond that could lose that chance. We could avoid the irreversible melting of the Greenland ice cap with the profound consequences this would entail. And in our genuinely transforming the root causes of climate change, be they in fossil fuel extraction and combustion, in black carbon, in deforestation and ecosystem degradation, in industrial agriculture, or unsustainable consumption, diets, travel, energy efficiency, etc., we can help create a way of living on this planet that can nurture our and other species for the near and future long term. With hope and courage, let us say to our children, we acted when we knew.
Thank you very much, Lindsay, for these strong words. Living so that others can live, and we acted when we knew. I want to give the word to Arnold. He comes from ACT Alliance and Kenya.
Thank you, Valerian. Thank you, Lindsay, for your submission. As it stated, probably for those who don't know, ACT Alliance is action by churches together. So we are basically an umbrella of 153 faith-based and church-based organizations, but I'm based in Nairobi. That's where the Global Climate Change Project is based. Just to reiterate, or just to give another perspective to this discussion, is we are seeing there is evidence pretty much everywhere that the Earth is in a crisis, and there are calls to declare climate change issues a world crisis. So we can't continue belaboring on the facts or ideas on issues around the need to urgently act for climate change. And from faith community, we are here to reflect internally what is our role as people of faith, whether we are from the Quakers, whether we are Catholics, whether we are Anglicans, whether we are Muslims, whether we are from whatever denominations we come from. What is that role in terms of pushing this courage and action for climate change? Therefore, we must care about environment and climate issues because of our love for God, the Creator, the ruler of the universe, our Redeemer, as it's captured in almost every text of faiths we come from, through whom and for whom we were created. And therefore, this world is not ours. It's basically, we are put there by our God, our Creator, and we therefore have that responsibility as people of faith to continuously engage and call for courage and ethics for climate change. I look at it from a stewardship point of view, that God created the world and entrusted its care to us as people of faith. How is our voice loud enough to basically put this message forward? I therefore see this, people of faith have both the opportunity and responsibility to offer biblical-based moral witness, and I use witness, that can help shape climate change discourse. The consequences of extreme climate change we create now will definitely have, or will have consequences on the next generation that's coming, if we're already not already experiencing that. If we come to ethics as people of faith, pretty much the discussions around here around our core values, our faith values. How do we put them in practice? How do we use this to advocate for discussions going around on climate change? Our values of love, our values of care, our values of humility, our values of stewardship and compassion. There is need for prophetic voice. Of course, this is the voice that gives us the courage to clearly communicate and fully measure, communicate and fully measure magnitude of Earth's problem or crisis, both religiously, morally, and politically. We need to keep on insisting on these principles, the principles of intergenerational equity, the principles of fairness, the amplification of voices of the marginalized individuals and groups, principles of gender equality and human rights for all. As I conclude, people of faith bring a unique and important message about the care of God's gift of creation, about those that are vulnerable to environmental injustices, those that are on the margins of our societies, and those with fewest resources to protect themselves or advocate on their own behalf. Climate change is an issue of faith, not only a political issue, it's a moral and a spiritual issue for both of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arnold, for reminding us about all the different aspects of climate change in terms of religious perspective and in terms of, I would say, physical responsibility. I also will talk about courage and ethics for climate action, but I would like to take it from the individual perspective also, because I don't think we can change globally if we don't change individually. We all, as the people who have the fortune to be here in this conference, to be representing all the different variety of cultures, nations, and face of the human family, we all need to find the courage to act. This is the only ethical thing to do. We individually need to find, globally and individually, the courage to change. We need to find the courage to change whatever we have created. It is our human societies that allow and create the destruction of our Mother Earth. Our home is on fire, like they used to reminding us, and we are all responsible to take care of the fire. And this requires individual and collective change and courage. The courage we need to have also includes the courage to learn to manage our minds and hearts and the emotions and desires we have in order to sustain the lifestyle that would make a difference for our planet and for our future. We need to create such a quality in our mind which enables one to meet danger and trouble that is to come in front of us without fear, to learn to deal with these, because both fear and greed are very bad advisors. The courage to be one with our own heart and not ignore it, and look deep in our consciousness to find what would be the right conduct, and find the courage and the will to reinvent not only oneself, but also the way we individually and collectively eat, live, and the way we are together as societies. We need to find the courage to face and to step into the unknown, the courage to get to go deep inside and get to know oneself and the resources we have both inside ourselves in order to be resilient as a person and as a species. And then we need to find the courage to stretch out our capacities, but also our understanding of what we are able to do. The courage to remember our brothers and sisters living in our planet, who live in the most affected places of the world, who are the vulnerable people, and take the decisions we need to take, having them with us in our minds and in our hearts. The courage to maintain hope and see and choose a possible and beautiful future. The courage to change the way we think and use our inner resources. The whole system of our minds is very complex and requires the courage to start reinventing the way we operate our inner powers, and to nourish our hearts and experiment and value the wealth that there is there in each one of God's creation. And we also need the art to stay in peace in order to protect this inner beauty, and then the generosity to stretch out, to share the inner and outer gifts we have. We need the courage to love, to look for one's own source of wisdom and spiritual guidance, the courage to pray, the courage to meditate, and to stay in the present moment, and the courage to look into God's eyes and take the inspiration to change. Thank you for your attention. We would now like to open the floor for questions or thoughts. And there is a mic. You just need to stretch your hand up so that the person holding the mic can see it.
Thank you very much.
It's good if you say your name and organization, maybe.
Okay. My name's Joy, and I'm from the World Council of Churches, which is a very broad family of Christian churches, but working closely with people of other faiths, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Sikh, you name it. And we are, I think, in 183 countries. And so I'm thinking about the role of institutional religious groups, faith groups, and their responsibility and accountability to engage with the institutions on this planet. The importance of making our resources available to have the kind of dialogues we need, the kind of engagement in processes like the UNFCCC and others, and the challenge of translating that to people in the pews, who are the donors, because the funds come from people that are adherents to whatever their faith communities are. So it's an accountability back to them. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering how this, the transfer of that knowledge and engagement, how it can be better facilitated through the UN, through other organizations, through our own possibilities. What's it going to take to get the messages out loud and clear?
So maybe we could take another question, or maybe two other questions, if there are questions, before we answer this one. Yes.
Thank you. I'm Jan Wolf from Buddhist Tzu Foundation. We are also looking at ways to help people to understand that climate change is related to individual actions which every one of us is doing in their daily lives, and we feel where there's actually a lot of potential is if we look at the way what people actually eat, and what they consume, so that we believe there is quite a big potential to actually tackle climate change via individual behavior of all the people who live on this planet, and that faith-based organizations can actually play quite a big role in transmitting that knowledge to the community. So I would like to hear a little bit more about what your individual organizations do in terms of, we call it ethical eating or promoting vegetarian diet. Thank you.
Good. So do we have a third question there? Please be brief so we can answer. Thank you.
Ian Black from University of Stirling. I'm a professor of marketing, and I would just like to unfortunately disagree with you that we have time for individual choice here. As a professor of marketing, I know all the ways that established power and organisations are making sure you think you have choice over what you consume and what you eat, but you don't. We don't have choice. So I think that's I would frame our action has to be at those who have the power. I love the frame you're using with courage and ethics. I'm working up a current version of our university ethics procedures and questions, because at the moment we go through ethics and we ask people, whether they experiment on children, are we going to damage them, etc. But we don't ask anything about the nature of whether research is going to damage our planet. We just accept that we're completely agnostic on that point. So hence I'm working. I'd be really interested to know what you might want on a university ethics form that brings the care and courage into climate action. I'd be fascinated what I could write in.
Thank you. Would you like to start? And we'll go like this to answer.
Yeah, so for Joyce, I think, people will say to me, well, what does the Paris Agreement have to do with me? And that's a really important question. We have a responsibility here to translate what that means to someone in grassroots communities. We do toolkits to help them. We're trying to do a small, simple toolkit of the IPCC 1.5. What can you do and what's the research? Basic things, rights-based. So bringing that information, bringing it to those people in the communities, I think is our responsibility here, to translate it in a way that it makes sense to their daily lives. Individual organizations, for example, with the Quakers, the British Quakers were the first to divest from fossil fuels. It'd be fantastic if all the faith communities worldwide divested from fossil fuels, but also made those strong connections of rights-based approaches will help with sustainable and effective climate action. And for your university ethics, commit the university to a 1.5 pathway. Thank you.
Just an addition on specific role as asked by Joy. For me, is there's always been, I believed, I was born in Africa, there's always been this discussion between the congregants in the terms of the church, the role of the church on issues of environment. And there's this growing suggestions that we don't want to hear the word and you don't want to hear this whole how you need to take your environment. We need to see you engage with political leaders. We want to see you engaging with governments. So, so this is a growing demand, or what I'm trying to suggest is there is need for churches and faith-based organizations to engage with the respective government, national climate change processes in their country, and just not sit aside and be very modest. You know, sometimes we are very modest in our approach on issues that are affecting our existence in the world. So as just an addition in terms of specific institutional roles of churches and faith-based organizations is to engage aggressively with national processes, engage aggressively with NDCs. But you can't engage aggressively if you're not informed. And therefore, that's why you're calling for churches and faith organizations to be technically, to technically understand the discussions around the Paris Agreement, discussion around negotiations. So it shouldn't just be a preserve of technical government policy science people, but also let's see how we bring the spaces or we bring the faith communities, whether it's community-based religious organizations or at national level, to understand these very basic concepts that you're engaging in as professionals in this. I guess for the university as well, it's more of how do you green, for example, commitment to what Lindsay has said on 1.5. But more importantly, it's also on basic behaviors of the university, the students themselves, environmental kind of things. It shouldn't just be academic, but what is the environmental consciousness of the students or the faculty in that particular university? Basic issues like plastic, do you have a policy on that? How economic, how green sort of processes within the universities? Those could be just very quick win things that institutions could put in place to curb the carbon footprints and to just conserve the environment. Thanks.
The good thing about talking last is that so much has been said. Thank you. What I think also is that we, as faith-based organizations, engage with people. I mean, whether you talk to them when you lead a meditation or when you're doing a service, and these people, they see information as something that's there on television and newspapers, but I think it is our role to engage youth in the universities and churchgoers or spiritual seekers with a different understanding that would come more from an inner experience, because you cannot press the button of love, you cannot press the button for care, you cannot press the button for peace. It's a personal, ethical, and moral duty to take care of yourself and to take care of your personal relationship with the environment. So I think that the more we will hold places and spaces and and welcome conversations. And we do have conversations around food, for instance. How is it to have an ethical meal? What does it mean? What's the influence of food onto the footprint on the planet? And what's the right food to eat? Because it's not about everybody eating wrongly, so because vegan is the new fashion, right? It's also about understanding what's good and how to eat. So I think that all this, we are somehow at the heart of the role of making this inspirational and not just a duty for people to follow, because it is something that has to be done with the heart. People will take care of their planet if their heart becomes engaged. And in a sense, we are all here trying to engage from the heart. And I think this is our great strength in comparison with the politicians out there. Thank you. We have another side event on Thursday on climate action, to which you're all welcome. We'll have some leaflets if you want them. Goodbye.